the last hope of the Eldar. Quote, "The reborn is the only hope left to our people. They seek to unite the Aeldari entire, to bring together not only the craft worlds but every scattered shard of our race, be they outcast, exodite, or soul-hungry Druhari. With the whispering God's net gathering us together away from the sight of evil, we shall be reforged. We shall be a people that look forward in hope, not backward in despair. Follow them, cast aside your waste and the crippling fear it represents, and we shall soar on the winds of fate once more." End of quote from Lathril, High Farseer of Bealtan. Light in the darkness. With Ynnari and their Ulthwé allies fighting together as one, the Eldar tore apart the tightening noose the Slaaneshi demons had cast around them. With Ynnari and their Ulthwé allies fighting together as one, the Eldar tore apart the tightening noose the Slaaneshi demons had cast around them. The strike forces owed like fast-running streams through the ruins and dust dunes of the shattered Aeldari city, capitalizing on the gains before the demonic hosts could cut them off. Yvraine led the charge, her regalia billowing behind her in the ethereal winds as she sprinted through shattered arches and under statues of fallen heroes. Towards the giant Memorial Hall of Atransis she ran, a vast museum-like structure where the works of the pre-fall Eldar were once displayed as the foremost treasures of the universe. With Ulthwé's close assault specialists forming a wall of blades on either flank, the Ynnari vanguard plunged inside the enormous hall, seeking a defensible position from which they could repel the Slaaneshi soul hunt from a narrow frontage. Within those walls, they were to find far more than simple tactical advantage. As the Reborn took up positions on the sweeping ramps and daises of the hall's interior, the building was gradually ooded with golden-yellow light. Two immense structures at the back of the hallway shook the dust from the slab-like fascias as they opened, unfurling jerkily like the wings of a butterfly fresh from its chrysalis. A glowing yellow rune portal was revealed within, immense yet visible only to the dead, or those that bore the blessing. Massive as the secret portal was, the figure that emerged from within was so tall it still had to stoop to fit through. A rune-emblazoned Wraith Knight in proud yellow and blue heraldry glided out from the ancient portal, two more of the immense ghost warriors in its wake. Long-barreled sun cannons thrummed loudly in the stillness. A shout of triumph rose up from the Ynnari as the giants opened fire, blast after blast of intense plasma energy shooting from the entranceway of the hall. Wherever they struck, the demons tumbling through the hall's entrance to capture the escaping Eldar were annihilated. Everywhere a new hunting pack of Slaaneshi creatures appeared, a killing volley of energy scoured them from existence. When a knot of seeker chariots of Slaanesh careened through the ranks of the Ulthwé Eldar, blood ying from bladed wheels, one of the Wraith Knights stepped forward and smashed him to scattering shrapnel with a sweeping blow from its massive blade. Yvraine was the first to notice the smaller figures at the giant's feet. The fabled constructs of craft-world Yanden had arrived, already spreading out to form a protective wall around the Ynnari. Amongst them was none other than Ayana Arianal, the Angel of Yanden. At the Spiritseer's instruction, the Ghost Warriors formed a loose circle that spread out through their living comrades, then locked in tight. The Wraithbone Bulwark allowed every living Eldar through without resistance, yet hurled back the demon pursuers with volleys of firepower and methodical bladework. Many of the faceless warriors gave their lives to ensure their living kin could escape. Ayana beckoned the Ynnari into the golden portal. Realizing that to stay was to die, Yvraine ordered the retreat. Group by group the Reborn dashed into the secret spire of the webway beyond. Perilous indeed were the hidden paths that the Yandeni used to reach the Crone worlds and gather their waste and bounty. The Ynnari was led by not only the most gifted Spiritseer of her generation, however, but also the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow. Though it took long solar weeks of arduous travel, they found the second of the golden portals without serious incident, a gateway that led them to a hidden webway portal of Craftworld Iyanden within its Vade wayport. Ynnari presented the Benessenges seal of her dynasty to a dozen runic locks, sang in a lilting soprano the lineage of Eldars, and projected her psyche into the spirit reservoirs beyond each gate until they opened soundlessly one by one. The expedition passed through into the chilly, mist-wreathed catacombs of the Craftworld's ghost halls. Each alcove, once occupied by the inert shell of an inactive ghost warrior, was empty. There were sounds of distant thunder high above. The visage cocked his head and loosened his great blade in its knotted scabbard. These were not the sounds of a tempest, but the din of the ongoing battle. Yvraine felt hope and despair in equal measure. They had found safety, just as it looked like they would be overwhelmed completely, and better yet, their rescuers were numbered amongst those Craftworlders they sought to bring to Innard's cause. In dying and being reborn within the domain of the ancient Aeldari, the Incarn had claimed the shape-changing Sword of Souls from within the soil of Belial IV. Yet the Ynnari had found only one of the two blades of power they sought from Belial IV before they had been forced to EE. Without all five of the chronoswords, Innard's power would be significantly lessened. Worse still, the sword Yvraine had expected to find upon Iyanden was missing, its psychic spore nowhere to be found. The Angel of Iyanden, the spirit seer Ayana, had a series of impassioned exchanges with Yvraine as they gained the winding steps to the Craftworld's well-lit interior. The world ship was under siege once more. As it had passed through the Endrigan sector, a warp storm that had seemed distant one night was alarmingly close the next. From within that empiric tempest had come a pair of vast rotten space hulks, each a cadaverous mass of metal and rock so pitted with age it had not a single straight line nor smooth contour upon it. The runic divinations of the Farseers had shown the immense composite ships to be infested with demonic life forms, just as a bloated corpse is infested with maggots. Vast swarms of rotflies, each led by a pinioned demon prince, had flown from the repulsive space detritus towards Iyanden upon membranous wings. With the warp storm propelling them, and with no need to breathe, they had descended upon Iyanden in their thousands. Yvraine had a hollow feeling it was no accident that Iyanden was assailed by demon invaders just as she and her Ynnari had sought safe haven there, but she kept her peace on the matter. To a Craftworld that counted the dead as the most numerous of its defenders, the message of Innard's awakening was a delicate enough matter already. "Our fate is that of Omathrian, it seems," said Ynnari as she and Yvraine strode across the bridge of endless night. "To be torn apart anew by carrion crows each time our wounds begin to heal." Overhead, just visible through the thin crystal of the Ynnari dome, the explosions of fleet warfare lit the void. "Did Omathrian not wish to die under the red moon?" said Yvraine, thereby ending his torment, and being reborn anew. "If you seek to extinguish what is left of Iyanden Zam, you'll find your welcome short indeed," said Ayana. "I have sung the songs of Innard myself for many long years. Truly I believe all our destinies are held within his net. But first we will take a grievous toll upon those who wish to hound us to our deaths. That does not involve succumbing to some horrid infestation, nor wasting away in apathy and despair." "Well said," murmured the visage as he walked behind them. Yvraine started in surprise at her companion breaking his silence but said nothing. As the Eldar reached the end of the bridge and made for the war council beyond, a dozen Wraithguard blocked the path, a robed Farseer in their midst. "Dental and Firesight," Ayana whispered. "He will not risk the ghost halls coming to our side, not now." She turned to Yvraine, eyes alight. "Whatever happens, we shall make Innard proud to call us his daughters." Yvraine nodded, emotions thick in her throat. "I bid you welcome," called out Denteln, "but sadly your timing is more that of crippled Vol than deft Asuryan. With the armada fully engaged, Ayandan cannot afford distraction, lest we inadvertently open our gates at the enemy once more. You and your followers have traveled far, even Falchu the messenger folded its wings at day's end. You must rest." At this he gestured at the distant quarter of the great dome, ill-lit and still. "We will escort you and your fellow Comorites to a guarded haven, to ensure minimum disruption. Those of your host that wear craft world colors, or the motley of Sigarash, will be dispersed to fight upon the front line. We dearly need the blades." "That measure is not necessary," said Yvraine, her tone ice cold. "My people will stay and fight as one." "But I insist," said the Farseer. Behind him, the Wraithguard lifted their weapons. In the middle distance, bipedal war walkers emerged from behind the curving architecture of the War Council's chambers, the guns reinforcing the deadly message. "Very well," said Yvraine. "We will not raise our blades against you on this dark day. If you wish to snuff out the am your people once held so dear, we shall be there to light it once more." The Wraithguard closed around the Ynnari commanders and led him away into the gloom. High above, the thunder of war rumbled ever louder like the laughter of distant gods. Within minutes of leaving the Bridge of Endless Night, Yvraine, the Visage, the core of the Ynnari, and Ayana Arianal were involuntary guests in Ayandan's most sumptuous halls. Their every need was catered for, white-robed Eldar adolescents on the path of the servant offering refreshment and even cleaning their war gear of the Crone world's dust. Still, the truth was obvious to all. The reborn, those who believed Inna to be the savior the Eldar so desperately needed, had been incarcerated against their will. Battle in the stars high above still raged between Ayandan's armada and the demon-infested space hulks that drifted, slow but unstoppable, towards them. Yvraine felt a slow-burning rage build within her breast, but she tamped it down. The Way of Ken would not release her from this. Neither the Ynnari nor the Ayandani could afford a civil war. Instead, she had to reach inside herself deeper than ever before, and let the conduit between all living things channel her soul. Outward she cast her essence, ever outward, her mind's eye reaching towards one star after another. That which she sought was not there. On the outer surface of Ayandan, elephantine rotflies buzzed and swarmed, their pot-bellied plague riders smearing filth upon crystal domes that had felt only the kiss of solar winds. A trio of Nurgle demon princes alighted nearby, talons screeching gouges in the transparent domes. With rusted maces and wrought iron blades, they hammered the crystal over and over until they had forced open an entrance. The thin bubbles of atmosphere that surrounded the dome like nodes, fashioned to prevent the insides of the world ships being sucked out into space in the event of a meteor swarm or other cosmic accident, gave the demons the shelter they needed to wriggle and crawl within. Through these apertures the winged plague drones of Nurgle gained entry into the craft world, descending upon the elegant forests and sculpture gardens in a hideous greenish-brown cloud. They were swiftly intercepted by several shrines of swooping hawks that itted, lasers blasting, just out of reach. The winged aspect warriors were swiftly joined by squadrons of crimson hunters, streaks of deep red scarring the air as they hunted the fat-bellied demon princes that befouled their home. The bright lances of their Nightwing interceptors struck over and over, each unerringly accurate shot blasting streams of viscera from the chests and abdomens of the Eshi intruders. Garalgor the virulent plummeted lifeless from the skies, but both Duke Oglaw and Malethras of the fetid claw descended towards the Eldar homelands below as if unconcerned by their injuries, chortling with glee as their innards drizzled filth across the lands below. The Crimson Hunters performed tight loop-the-loops and came in again, this time aiming for the heads of their prey. With the swooping hawks thickening their fire, even the demon lords could not shrug off the intensity of their punishment. Oglaw and Malethris fell like stones to explode in showers of filth upon the alabaster agstones below. The demon riders assailing Ayandan's forest did not get far, for they were contained and quarantined by unliving hosts of ghost warriors. Yet the invasion was really only just beginning. In the firmament high above, the twin space hulks that had emerged from the warp storm drifted ever closer. Though the demons embattled upon Ayandan's surface were outmatched 10 times over, the same could be said of Ayandan's armada. Each of the space hulks that faced him was truly immense, a composite monstrosity formed of abandoned spaceships, space debris, and asteroids the size of small moons. Many of the void craft that jutted from the space hulks had active gun batteries that sent punishing broadsides towards the Eldar craft that harassed them from afar. The spacecraft of the Armada was nimble enough to simply evade any solid munitions, but not every weapon used by the hulks was so conventional. When thousands of winged drones EW silently across the dark reaches of space to latch onto the solar sails of the Eldar ships, gnawing away at them like moths devouring silken finery, the Eldar vessels found themselves slowing to a crawl. Again the hulks opened fire, this time to full effect. So widespread and devastating were their volleys that they caught several Ayandan voidcraft amidships and destroyed them completely. Sequestered in her guest quarters, Yvraine reached out once more with her psychic powers. She could feel the deathly energies of the Ayandan Armada's demise even in her confinement. This time she was rewarded. Beyond it was a thinner of intent, a soul sign coming from the allies she had sent ahead when Ynnari first arose. It was the Size-Pur of Thriel Longblade, captain of the Mansbane. She peered through the crystal skylights of her quarters, hoping to see a glint in the stars, and gave the psychic signal. She peered through the crystal skylights of her quarters, hoping to see a glint in the stars, and gave the psychic signal. The Eldar corsairs who knew Yvraine as Amharok in Camorra emerged from a field of stellar debris. Their ships are hidden from plain sight by holo fields and mimic engines. Pulsar lance batteries, keel torpedoes, phantom lancers, and leech engines took the toll on the nearby hulk. Under sustained barrage, the engine bay plasma reactors at the hulk's rear detonated with spectacular force. As a new star burned in the firmament, Yvraine allowed herself a tight smile. The fated prince. As Yvraine's old comrades took the toll, Ayandan's own corsair allies joined the fight. With the smaller of the two Nurgle-infested space hulks destroyed by Amharok's corsairs, both the armada of Ayandan and the warships of the Eldritch Raiders concentrated the firepower upon the larger vessel, codified by Prince Ariel himself as spawn of Ulthwé. Like nimble star sharks staring chunks from a void whale, the corsair ships closed in, leveled the devastating attacks, and slipped away. The crater-pitted behemoth's main defense was not guns, however, but its sheer bulk. It could be hammered by the guns of the Eldar for solar days and still have enough mass to destroy Ayandan should it collide. The hulk had drifted long in the haunted tides of the warp, even passing through the sickly green-grey skies of Nurgle's garden in the realm of chaos for a time. The demon infestation that had claimed it riddled its labyrinthine innards right to the core, and thousands of winged demons wound from every new crater like ribbons of smoke. The truth was becoming clear. If the hulk's exterior was inviolable, it would have to be destroyed from the inside out by a strike force of Eldar, who would be risking the most hideous deaths imaginable. Prince Ariel, as ever, was quick to answer the call to action. In collusion with his fellow corsair princes in Yvraine's Eat, he organized a 3-stage assault on the spawn of Ulthwé. The plan was ambitious in the extreme, but necessarily so. To approach the hulk in a boarding craft would be to become swamped by demonic rock flies before ever reaching its sides. The gamble was so daring that it appealed to Iriel's fellow captain's sense of pride and bravado, and within a matter of solar hours, it was well underway. Virtually unnoticed by the combatants at large, Iriel and his captains left the starships aboard sleek assault craft and made for the webway portal at the rear of craft-world Ayandan. En route, Iriel used his rank as the craft-world's High Admiral to convince the world ship's steersmen to adopt a specific course. Slowly, the beleaguered craft-world came about upon the designated coordinates. Prince Iriel's insertion craft was nimble and swift enough to bypass the demon invaders that harassed Ayandan's exterior, and they passed through the stern webway portal with acceptable losses. Using Iriel's uncanny hunter's instincts in conjunction with ancient Slaaneshi maps of the near-space webway labyrinth, they located the spar of that insane dimension that corresponded to the spawn of Ulthwé's course. It was a heading Iriel had all but dictated by offering Ayandan as the bait. As the spawn drifted through space towards the craft world, intent on ramming its prey, Iriel and his captains activated the personal webway portal devices and walked through the shimmering discs, crossing from the labyrinthine dimension into the fetid heart of the enemy space hulk. The Eldar strike force stepped cautiously from the emerald portals they had opened into the cavernous interior of the infested enemy ag ship. It was near the pitch black inside, and a drizzle of foul UIDs spotted down from a vaulted ceiling high above. The corsairs, anxious to avoid the patter of stinking liquids, darted to the cover of the nearest corridors and gingerly made their way further in. The faint sound of engines pulsing regular as a heartbeat could be heard in the distance. Having come this far, the corsairs were not keen to turn back without completing their mission, even if the slime-slicked innards they were forced to navigate were more like the winding insides of a diseased sea monster than the ordered corridors of a spacecraft. Iriel and his fellow captains took comfort from the fact they wore sophisticated air reservoirs and hermetically sealed armor, the finest that Terran centuries of reaving could afford. It was well they did. Puffy balls of fungus, each formerly the head of an earlier trespasser, wheezed spores in billowing streams. For the intruders to breathe even a single lungful of that blighted air would have resulted in a truly disgusting death. Though the corsair princes had to cut their way through thickets of grasping, tentacle-like cilia and leap over bubbling pools of acidic slime, they proved dexterous enough to penetrate to the thrumming heart of the foul ship's engineerium. Thus far they had encountered little fiercer a foe than giggling demon mites, for their vector of the attack had bypassed the demon hordes on the warpath at the outer edge of the hulk. When they reached the engines, however, they found a more daunting sight, the slime-slicked cocoons of sulking beasts of Nurgle that had sought a warm place in which to make their vile metamorphoses. Perhaps the corsairs would have swiftly disabled the hulk's mighty plasma engines and escaped without hindrance had the swamp-like inner chamber not also been home to squatting, sedentary terror. Gurgling at the chamber's heart was the vastly obese demon Prince Garagugulgor, whose name can only be pronounced correctly with a throat full of phlegm. Though the monstrosity's tentacle-like arms were whip-thin and dexterous, his abdomen was so engorged that it was impossible for him to move further than a few Terran feet. Still, he laughed with good reason, for this day the prey had come to him. Whipping tendrils lashed out as Iriel jumped nimbly from one island of solid ground to another, the fabled spear of twilight blazing in his hand. One of them brushed the impeccably dressed corsair Prince Lumino on the heel and immediately hauled him screaming into the air, dangling him within biting range. A grisly snap and the Eldar pirate was halved at the waist. His severed legs kicked spasmodically as Garagugulgor finished his snack. Iriel grimaced as he leaped closer still, polearm blade slashing at the tentacles whipping towards him to force them back. The damage was already done. Lumino's death scream had disturbed the pupae all around the room, and now many were beginning to shiver and shake, glistening wings and questing proboscises pushing from the fetid sacks. One by one, a swarm of drizzling rot flies emerged prematurely from the transformations, hissing and half-formed as they stirred from the slumber to malevolent wakefulness. Another Corsair prince cried out as something grabbed his ankle. Spurred into action, the rot flies took wing as best they could, buzzing angrily as they lurched through the air towards the intruders. The horrified Eldar abandoned all attempts at stealth, opening fire in all directions. With that, the vaulted Space Hulk engine room erupted into violence from end to end. The battle that followed saw some of the most inspired displays of swordsmanship, agile footwork and acrobatic poise outside of the troops of Sigarach's favorite harlequins. The Corsair princes unleashed every weapon they could bring to bear. Jokairo digital weapons, Aeldari soul knives, Camorite slasher prisms and contraband elixirs that tripled the imbiber's physical reaction speed were all employed to ensure the demonic denizens could not lay a single talon upon the intruders. And for a while, they were enough. At the heart of the battle, Aerial fought hardest of all, his spear glittering with killing energies as it slashed, whirled and stabbed at anything foolish enough to come within reach. Running up the wall opposite Garagugulgor, Aerial pushed backward and away over a grasping tentacle, backipping to spring once more of Vigentry with High Admiral's greatcoat billowing. His spear was raised for a killing thrust. Garagugulgor heaved a spray of stringy vomit from the gills in his wattled throat, and though Aerial twisted and arched his spine to avoid it, he turned his back on the black pseudopods that reached out to pluck him from the air. In an instant, Aerial was caught like a Y in a spider's web, sticky tentacles wrapping around him to bind his arms to his sides. The demon prince brought Aerial close, his jaws yawning wide. Suddenly the chamber was lit by a stark white brilliance. Aerial's ocular implant, the Eye of Twilight, aired bright as it released a storm of killing electricity. The energies were so fierce they burned away the demon's tentacles. The Corsair prince was free once more. Down came the deadly spear of twilight that had claimed so much of Aerial's life, its blade gouging deep, not into the demon prince, but into the beating heart of the enginarium itself. A hideous shriek was wrenched from the demon overlord's throat as the unearthly energies of that baleful artifact went to work. Black veins spread out across the Hulk's core machinery, necrotizing once living metal into shuddering black rust wherever they spread. Though it had taken every iota of his skill and ingenuity, Aerial had achieved his goal. He smiled momentarily as the spear's deathly energies slew its true target, the heart of the spacefaring juggernaut itself. A whipping tentacle came around a broken girder in its grip. Aerial was too exhausted to dodge. The heavy iron bar smashed the life from the Eldar prince with a single blow. Garagugulgor, once he had finished killing the last of the interlopers in as gruesome a fashion as he could devise, slurped and shuffled his way to Prince Aerial's cooling corpse. Before his death, the Autarch of Iyanden had effectively becalmed the Hulk's only intact enginarium with a single stabbing blow of his eldritch weapon. Without the ability to correct the behemoth's course, the Space Hulk was reliant on momentum alone, and could likely be avoided by the Eldar craftworld. How could a mere mortal defy the will of Nurgle? Garagugulgor was still high in the favor of Grandfather Nurgle, for he had diligently spread the disease for countless standard centuries, and his particularly inventive brand of gallows humor was most amusing to the Plague God. But with his plan to break the necromantic Eldar of Iyanden in tatters, the demon prince would have to find another way to rise in his patron's estimation. Stirring a pool of blood-laced slime with one of his tentacles and reciting the 7 sickening psalms, the demon lord reached out with his psychic abilities into the depths of the warp. There he had an epiphany. If his theory held true, and this warrior's blade was that which it appeared to be, there was still a chance to help Nurgle's power wax high, not of its own slow but steady accord, but because one of his chief rivals in the great game of chaos would suddenly find his own star waning fast. At the very least, Garreg Ugulgor could deliver a little gift to the Eldar world ship, one that would reduce it to ruin as surely as a direct collision from a space hulk. The demon prince frowned once more at Prince Ariel's spear, clutched in its owner's death grip and still glowing gently with baleful energies. Then, as shuddering waves of mirth wobbled Garreg Ugulgor's 7 great chins, his consternation turned into a belly laugh that shook the rust from the rafters high above. It was not long after a Yandan had left the grotesque space hulk behind that Prince Ariel's body, frozen in a strange milky resin with the spear of twilight laid across his chest, was found floating in space. It was not long after a Yandan had left the grotesque space hulk behind that Prince Ariel's body, frozen in a strange milky resin with the spear of twilight laid across his chest, was found floating in space. The entombed corpse was recovered by a team of Hemlock Wraith fighters that had sensed its presence in the stars by using a remote Wraith construct familiar on a silver tether. They were able to retrieve the corpse and take it back in safety to the craft world itself. A great sadness rippled throughout the world ship at the news, for Ariel was the brightest star, a once wayward genius who had proven to be a Yandan's savior more than once. His loss was so profound that many Eldar were seen weeping openly in the craft world streets. What must a Yandan do, they wailed, to escape the cursed fate that haunted its every turn?